want to change tack a little bit and talk about your experiences going from agency to SaaS, and then back again. Can you talk us through that? Tell us that story.
Those were painful days. I just, I'd been involved in SaaS companies. I'd started another SaaS company way back in the day when YouTube was just like barely even a thing yet. And, certainly there was no such thing as a mobile phone that would let you watch and record videos. I started in podcasting back, this was all back, 98, 99, 2000, in that range. We saw podcasting as being like a great place to start. So I was involved in a podcasting startup. This is before Apple Podcasts. Everybody was doing it old school and spinning up their own RSS feeds and making their own shows. And anyway, I could go on. That's a whole nother part. So I had a taste though of what the startup world was like. And I loved the idea of selling a product that didn't involve my time, that eventually, if it got momentum, could start generating revenue that didn't involve my constant need to fulfill services. So I was addicted to it, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I kept looking for ways to make that happen. And I was a frustrated agency owner trying to be a SaaS company. And the problem is I'm not a technical person. I'm somewhat technical, but and the older I get, the more technical I'm becoming just because I'm learning things. But, at the time, I couldn't code and there was no vibe coding or anything. So I was stuck and I needed a technical co-founder if anything was going to go anywhere. And my co-founder in the agency is not a technical person either. We just had no way of really getting it done. So I happened to catch my friend who I had started a SaaS company with before. We had run out of runway. We had gotten a little bit of funding and we'd run out of runway and just shut it down. But he's one of the most brilliant coders I know. And I happened to catch him at a moment where he was in between a couple of things. And I convinced him to build a software product for us based on a need that we had in our industry, which is just following up on open estimates. And the guys, when you're working from the truck, you're running from one job to the next, and it's always the new person in front of you. And once you present an estimate to them, you never look back. You don't call them, you don't follow up on that. And so they're missing so much opportunities. And we're like, as a marketing company, we need to help them solve this. And the best way we know to solve it is to automate it. So let's automate it. And so my buddy Daniel Nelson built the system, and we called it Closing Commander, and it was phenomenal. And we sold it at a price point that people were eating up. I think I was around the time that I met you and became a part of Startup Sauce. And it was a huge and fun ride, but it became painful because Daniel, I caught him in that little window between things, but it didn't grow fast enough to snag him full time to become our guy, our technical co-founder. And so he was off to the next thing, and we lost him. And as a result, I had software I couldn't figure out how to support. And when things would break, it was tough to get anybody to help me fix it. That's not a good place to be when you're a SaaS company, when your primary product people can't even log into, or it's not doing what they, are paying you for it to do. So that was a nightmare. And I really struggled, but eventually we decided we had to sell the software at the stage that it was, and it could have become a bigger thing. We could have had a much better exit. As it was, we just basically shuffled it off to a developer who could support it as kind of a lifestyle business. That was the end of that, and it was painful. What else do you want to know? I'm an open book about it.
One of the questions that comes up a lot is, how do you juggle both of those things at the same time? Because you've still got to keep the agency running. You've still got to keep those clients happy. You've still got to deliver on that promise while you're getting the software business up and running. How were you and your co-founder splitting your time? Did you have the same team members, spending half the week on this and half the week? Like, how do you manage that?
We tried a lot of different things, trying to figure out how to do it. Divide and conquer. That didn't work. So then it was all hands on deck and everybody doing a little bit of everything, and that didn't work. It was, honestly, we didn't figure it out. I'll say this. And this is probably going to be controversial. Well, first of all, let me say this. I think every company has a DNA, right? I think every company, the DNA probably comes from the top, from the owners, the founders. They just have a vision for what they see the company needs to be about. and they have a way of executing that based on the values that they have and the thing, and so that just trickles down into your team. So your team ends up with this DNA, this identity. And if your identity is service, I do not think that that team is going to do well in a product SaaS environment. I don't think that they can become that. I just don't think it's in their DNA. It's like asking a platypus to become an octopus. It's just not going to happen. So that's my personal. I mean, feel free to change my mind. I think it's a bridge too far. I think it's too complicated to do, and that's where we kept hitting up against it. Here's the problem with us. We are a service DNA company. I mean, that's we eat, sleep, and breathe taking care of our clients, making them feel like a big fish in a small pond, concierge level kind of touch, and we start selling software, and you're selling it $147 a company, a month, and you can sell a lot of them, but every one of that you sell them to, because we started selling it directly to the clients that we already had, who were experiencing that high touch service, DNA, and now they're expecting that with the software. And there's no way you can scale that kind of software at $147 a month, and offer the kind of high touch, relationship driven approach that they're expecting. It doesn't work. So we ended up screwing up a lot of our client relationships because they didn't feel like they were being taken care of. They didn't feel like they were getting our attention. And then in order to prevent that from happening, we started giving them all of our love and attention, and we had no time to go sell and scale. So those were, on top of the fact that we lost a developer and, our technical co-founder, that was the other problem. But yeah, I just don't think that they're compatible. I think if you do service really well, but productize it as best you can. And that can be selling products as part of what you offer to fulfill the services that you're on the hook for. I recommend that, and that's what we're doing, and it's working really well. But I don't think that we would ever say, okay, we're done with service. We're now a product SaaS company. We're selling this thing for this price. If people need help, there's a knowledge base and AI chat in our app. And that's the methods that they have to get a hold of us. And we're just going to, I don't think I could ever do that. It's not in our DNA. And I don't think I could lead a company successfully that was purely product. So that's my take.
What are the biggest differences between marketing and selling a service versus marketing and selling software?
Well, I think probably it's going to come down a lot to the kind of product it is, in terms of the differences. But my experience with selling services is I'm very relationship driven, very, very consultative in the way that we approach a client. I ask more questions during our first hour in the meeting than telling them anything about what we do. I just want to know about their business. I want to hear what their struggles are. I want to find out how they're trying to solve those problems, and what their growth plans are, what their strategies are, what they've tried that has worked and what they've tried that hasn't worked, and what the things are that they hate about the last company they worked for, and why are they talking with us. It's just nothing but questions. And that's the way I sell, is by asking questions. And I get to do a lot of cool stuff with that and use a lot of, psychological anchoring. And we maybe talk about that later, but you can sell really big things in service packages when somebody feels like they are being heard. Like, finally, a vendor who just wants to hear about what I've built and how I did it, and the problems that I'm having and how they might be able to solve those problems. And they know that eventually we're going to get around to talking about those things and the price tag on it. But by the time we get around to that, they're so just swimming in the love, it's almost been a counseling session. We've talked about things that range far away from the marketing services that we're going to provide. But that's the thing about marketing, is it touches on every single aspect of a business. There's no way to talk about marketing without talking about operations or sales or any aspect of the business. So that's my approach. You can't do that with if you're doing software demos all day, then it's line them up, knock them down, and you got to get 8 or 9 of them done in a day. You don't have an hour just to talk about, how did it work when you had to fire your sister? That's got to be tough. You don't have time for that. So that's the difference.